As you know, we are the largest trading partners, and our relationship is truly gigantic, massive. I would say our trade exchange represents 1.6 trillion euros in 2023, and EU-US bilateral investment flows to more than 5 trillion. And I think what is very important for European but also American citizens, that this trade has also extremely important from the point of view of job creation. So we are talking about millions of jobs, altogether 10 million jobs, where 3.5 million jobs in the United States are directly created by the European companies and European investment. And therefore, I think it should be a priority for both of us, for European Union and for United States, to protect and further develop this relationship and to work together on shared challenges. And this is the message I delivered the last month in the US when I was there personally and physically, but this is also the message I never miss to underline when we have our ongoing phone and video call conversations. I am convinced that continuous engagement and the positive approach is the best way forward. However, I have always been also very clear with my US counterparts that we will react firmly and proportionally if we are hit by unjustified measures. And as you know very well, on the 12th of March, the US imposed 25% tariffs on 26 billion of euros of steel and aluminium exports from Europe. Just to put it into the perspective, this is approximately 5% of total EU exports to the United States of America. On top of it, more EU products might be subject to tariffs in the coming days. And I want to be clear that these are unjustified tariffs. These tariffs are harming European companies, workers and citizens. And we all know that the EU is clearly not the source of the problem when it comes to steel and aluminium. The real problem is overcapacity, and this means the way forward should be that Europe and US should cooperate together to tackle the root causes of the overcapacity. And as you know, we are not hesitating to take action in this regard, and you, I'm sure, noticed that yesterday we adopted the new Steel and Metal Action Plan, where the trade policy plays a very instrumental role. On the 12th of March, in reaction to the imposition of these unjustified tariffs, the Commission responded firmly by announcing swift and proportionate countermeasures on the US exports to the EU. And this package includes the suspended EU countermeasures from 2018 and 2020 that target range of US products in response to the economic harm done on 8 billion euros of EU steel and aluminium exports. At the same time, the Commission also launched a new process for the adoption of further measures to respond to the expansion of the US Section 232 tariffs hitting 18 billion euros of EU exports. Again, to compare it with what happened 5 years ago, the hit on the steel and aluminium, and I have to add derivatives, makes the package of the import duties from US on the EU products 3 times bigger than what we had 5 years ago. And therefore, the Commission has published a list of the products imported from the US for possible inclusion in the expanded package of countermeasures. We invited all stakeholders to submit their views until 26th of March. I know that you are very familiar with the process. Just for the record, I would say that all the products are listed on the website of the DG Trade for all stakeholders to look at and to start the consultations with us. I also have to say that the situation is quite fluid, quite volatile, and that we would also have to adjust our steps and our policies, because in the light of the recent announcement that the United States are planning to introduce additional tariffs. On the 2nd of April, we are now considering to align the timing of the two sets of EU countermeasures so we can consult with the Member States on both lists simultaneously. And this would also give us extra time for negotiations with our American partners to try to find a mutually agreeable solution, which clearly would be preference for us. As a result, all the EU countermeasures that were announced on the 12th of March would, in that case, take effect in mid-April. This approach would allow us to deliver a firm, proportionate, at the same time robust and well-calibrated response to US measures, while at the same time I could continue with the mission to which I was entrusted by the President von der Leyen to continue talks with my American counterparts, trying to find the solution with them. As far as we understand, the United States will impose the so-called reciprocal tariff as of 2nd of April on its trading partners for what it considers unfair and unbalanced trade. And for them, this should serve as a baseline for redefining and rebuilding US trading relations with the rest of the world. Only then, as we've been told, may partners be able to engage on possible negotiations. When it comes to EU tariffs on EU goods, I think it's very important to underscore that the average is very low. We are talking around 1%. However, it is clear that the US will also take into account their calculation on what they consider to be non-tariff barriers, such as value-added taxes or the EU regulations. At the moment, there is not enough clarity on what the percentage level of such a tariffs would be, what goods they would cover, and how these tariffs would be applied. And therefore, I'm engaging with my US counterparts to better understand the US plans and look for possible solutions. Meanwhile, we also, of course, continue working on our preparations. On the 2nd of April, we will need to assess the action taken by the US and keep a flexible approach so as to calibrate our response accordingly. In addition to the reciprocal tariffs, the US has launched a Section 232 investigation on copper, wood, again including derivatives, which could lead to additional tariffs or other restrictive measures. We have also been informed that the US is considering measures under Section 301 on shipbuilding that could have also negative effects for EU maritime transport firms. So we are following all these developments very, very closely, and we will again need to be ready to act firmly, swiftly and proportionally if needed. But allow me to reiterate that this is not our preferred scenario, not at all. And I will continue engaging with the US to see if we can avoid any unnecessary escalation. And this is the same message that the Commission is delivering to the Member States, and I am pleased to say that the sense of EU unity and solidarity is strong. We clearly stand united, and we are firm in our resolve to protect our interests while continuing to invite the US to engage constructively. Honourable members, if you allow, Mr. Chair, I would also now turn to the second topic of this joint hearing, because I'm, of course, extremely pleased to have the first structured dialogue with your committee as well. And I want to start by underlining the importance attached by the Commission and myself personally to working in close cooperation with all of you. So I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to exchange with you on a number of other trade-related issues. If you allow, I would start with ongoing files. Let's start with the generalized scheme of preferences review. I recognise the strengths of the feeling when it comes to the two outstanding issues concerning the readmission conditionality and safeguard mechanism for agriculture products, but I believe that we need to find a way through these issues, and I want to reiterate my commitment to help facilitate a way forward. Second important issue is foreign direct investment screening regulations, where we are very happy to see much swifter progress. And I look forward to trilogue starting in May, and I see no reason for us not to complete this work by the end of this year. I also want to highlight the Commission's recent proposal for the imposition of tariffs on the remaining agricultural goods and nitrogen-based fertilizers imported from Russia and Belarus. And the Commission has also proposed a plan to support Ukraine's iron and steel sectors, which would continue to exempt their imports into the European Union from the EU global safeguards. We count on Parliament's support to adopt this legislation swiftly and efficiently. If you allow me to turn to our network of free trade agreements, which has a key role in boosting Europe's competitiveness. We already have 44 preferential trade agreements covering 76 countries and 44% of EU trade. And this network, I'm glad to report, is set to grow, as many around the world turn to the European Union as a reliable, open partner in an increasingly polarized economic climate. Work continues internally to sign agreements with MERCOSUR and Mexico following the recent conclusion of negotiations. We aim to send the text to the European Parliament and the Council in the spring for Mexico and the summer for MERCOSUR. Here I want also to touch on the concerns I know many of you have with regards to communication between us on the agreement with Mexico. I have to underline that this was a rapidly changing situation which evolved over the Christmas period. And as you can imagine, in that time, this, as many other negotiations, have been very, very intense. But I want, once again, to underline my commitment to ensure that you are properly consulted and that you properly receive timely and detailed information whenever possible. If you allow me to inform you about further ongoing negotiations, currently we have a 10th round of discussions with India, and these negotiations kicked off here in Brussels last week. As you know, the President, together with the Prime Minister Modi, announced the target to conclude these negotiations by the end of 2025. This clearly demonstrates a strong commitment to finding a deal, and we are pleased to see this echoed by our Indian counterparts. However, I will not hide that the gaps still remain. Discussions will intensify in the coming weeks and months, and I'm optimistic that further progress can be made. I also had talks earlier this month with the Thailand's Minister of Commerce, Pichai Naritpapan, and it's still, I would say, early days, but we see positive engagement and good consolidation of the text advancing in all chapters. On Indonesia, extensive talks at technical and chief negotiator level continue on the key outstanding issues which are crucial to finding an agreement that brings value and delivers on EU's key commercial interest. On Philippines, the second round of talks last month were productive, and we see steady progress and continued engagement on both sides. The third round is scheduled to take place in June. Finally, on the Gulf Cooperation Council, we are working hard both with the GCC as a region as well as individual GCC countries to move forward. And I also would like to inform you that the United Arab Emirates are very much interested to advance our negotiations. So we are now in the process of closing the scoping exercise for potential free trade agreement with UAE. We should, at the same time, not limit ourselves to thinking of trade simply in the terms of FTA, however. We must be much broader and cohesive in our engagement with the third countries. We have to bring also new products to the shelves. And I'm sure that you noted the recent conclusion of the digital trade agreement with South Korea, and also the fact that we are working towards the first clean trade and investment partnership which are intended to bring a holistic approach to our relations with third countries, better aligning of our engagement on clean trade, investment and development. And in this regard, we have now launched negotiations with South Africa, as announced by President von der Leyen during her visit to South Africa last week. If you allow me to conclude, I would only mention that the first Sustainable Investment Facilitation Agreement with Angola entered into force on the 1st December 2024, and we are looking for the similar opportunities with other partner countries. Maybe last point on China. As you know, I will visit China next week. China remains an important partner for the EU, and my intention here is to engage proactively on areas of divergence, raise our concerns related to the level playing field and the impact on the EU, which we cannot leave unaddressed, seek resolution to concrete market access issues, and discuss how to ensure the Chinese foreign direct investment to the EU would contribute to the development of the EU value chains and development of technology here in the European Union. Of course, I look forward to providing you full debrief of my trip at appropriate time after my report.